to this day. But I've definitely gotten better at it over time, partially forced, partially just by choice, because I see the value in being concise and clear, because you can close deals, you can make more money, you can be more compelling. People listen to you and they retain what you say more effectively. So there's there's an incredible benefit from it being intentional in being concise and clear with what you're doing with your business. So with that being said, Melissa, you think it'd be best if I do like a quick, like 2-minute overview of my experience before we dive into like conversation and questions and things like that? Or
Yeah,
what would you
let's
think?
hear
Yeah,
how you can explain what you've done, your business ideas in everyday terms. Let's
I
see if
can
you can
pull it
do it.
off. Yeah,
Okay, let's hear
sure.
it.
So, all right. So, 2005, I got to Northwestern University. I'm from the South Side of Chicago, born and raised, seen a lot of things, but just happy to be alive. And so, when I was a freshman in college, my motivation was to make a lot of money because we grew up with nothing. So, I wanted to get something and then send it back to the hood. But that's not what I ended up doing. I got lucky, sort of. I believe luck is where preparation and opportunity intersect, but lucky in the sense that I met a couple people who had an idea for a business and we became friends, and the three of us decided to build the business. The idea of the business was, why don't we put television screens in doctors, this is 2005, television screens in doctors' offices to educate patients while they wait. Because when you're sitting in a waiting room, you're reading a magazine, you're watching the television, Judge Mathis, whatever. And instead of that, you could actually be learning about how you can improve your health so that when you speak to your doctor, you get more value from that interaction. So that was the original business that I started. We raised $250,000. I was 18 years old. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. But we built an office downtown. I was hiring a sales team twice my age. And we scaled the company and made over $1 million within that first year. I left that company in my sophomore year for a number of reasons, which I can go into in Q&A, but I'm going to speed up my story really quickly now so we can get into like a conversation. So sophomore year, I totally bit the entrepreneurial bug and decided I wanted to solve another problem in my life, which is haircuts. So I just didn't like how expensive it was for me as a near broke college student, paying $25, $30 for a haircut. And so I started a barbershop. I started 2 barbershops on the south side of Chicago to drive down the cost, but increase the value. So I did that sophomore year going into junior year. And I gave that business up to my partner who I built it with. And then junior year, I got into venture capital. A lot of people told me I couldn't do it. This is 2007. So it wasn't as much of a thing then for undergrads to have access to that type of opportunity. So I snuck into Kellogg, our business school, sat in on some classes, audited some stuff, did some networking, and then worked my way up and got into 2 venture capital firms. So I worked in venture capital junior and senior year in college. And that's where I learned a lot about like technology businesses and companies and where that future was headed. So when I graduated, I worked at a 3rd venture capital firm, and I was not only doing venture capital investments, but I was also an entrepreneur in residence. So I was building products and hiring developers and designers to prototype mobile applications and web applications to validate business concepts. So I did that for about 5 months, but then something happened. I realized that I was going to become obsolete because I saw myself as like this business guy, leader guy. I could manage projects and come up with ideas and do financial modeling, but I didn't actually know how to build anything. And this is in 2010. So this is like 10 or 11 years ago. Yeah, 11 years ago. And I just started to study like software engineering and computer science at night, just like for kicks. And slowly but surely, I got really into it. And I decided to quit my job 5 months in and go all in and teach myself software development and design. So I recruited a few friends of mine to do that with. We did that for a year, built some stuff. We struggled, but eventually we realized that we could actually learn how to do this. Like I was a self-taught technologist. And from that, I started a school. It's a big leap, and there's a lot of details leading up to that, but I'll go into that if you're curious. But once I launched that school, it was called Code Academy originally. It eventually became the Starter League. It caught fire. It was viral. It was top of Hacker News. Everybody heard about it all over the world. And bunch of people relocated from wherever they were on earth to Chicago just to come to my program for 3 months and pay me thousands of dollars. So I ran that for 5 years and had an incredible journey all along the way. And I ended up selling it to another coding bootcamp based in New York that went through Y Combinator called Full Stack Academy. So it's still running, but that was 6 years ago. And once I sold that, I ran a nonprofit called Code Now to help high schoolers from backgrounds like my own get their start in software development as well. And then I ran Premier Chicago, which was a wild journey. And I can tell you all you want to know about that too, and how I made that entrepreneurial. And then now, and all the while, like while all that's happening, I'm involved with Northwestern. Like I'm like participating and teaching and helping and trying to build the entrepreneurship ecosystem here. Because when I was a student at Northwestern, there was no entrepreneurial ecosystem. There was just like a handful of people who were into it a little bit, and like we were all trying to find our own way. And now there's like robustness with the garage, with Melissa, with so many other resources. Like there's like we can do this. Like we have incredible entrepreneurs, and I'm among many of them right now, I'm sure. And yeah, it's an honor to be here. So now my last part is my current gig. So I am an investor at Techstars Chicago. I'm the managing director of the program. We are the global accelerator that helps entrepreneurs succeed. So Techstars is basically one of the gold standards for going through an early stage like startup accelerator. And they helped invent the accelerator model back in 2006. And one of the very first companies that went through Techstars is like some friends of mine that I actually helped start their business, Next Big Sound. They're Northwestern alums. So the last part of that job is I choose 10 companies every year and I invest $1.2 million evenly distributed across all 10. And we put them through a pretty rigorous, intense 3-month, accelerator program where they learn everything they need to know to make their businesses successful. It's, I'm having the time of my life right now. Like I'm an investor at Math Venture Partners, which is another venture capital firm in Chicago. That's a part-time thing. And not only am I running Techstars Chicago, but I'm also launching and raising a new fund at Techstars called Rising Stars, which is meant to invest in Black and Brown underrepresented founders of color across the U.S. And I'll be leading and running that fund on top of those other gigs too. So there's a lot going on right now, but I'm stoked.
Can we talk about that last piece you just mentioned? Because
Sure.
one of the reasons we built this program is that if you look across the U.S. population, 13% of the U.S. population identifies as Black or African American. At Northwestern, and according to the freshman class, it's about 10%. But if you look at
it was 4% when I was a student.
It's 4%. So it's going the right direction.
Yeah.
Almost meeting the broader population. But if you look at venture capital specifically, only 1% of venture-backed founders identify as Black.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What's up with that? And then how are programs like yours going to help fix that?
Sure. So what is up with that is, networks beget themselves, and in early stage investing in venture capital, who makes a major difference. And so if you're investing in founders who, have a certain pattern, that pattern recognition then seeps into all of the thinking of everyone else. So who you bring in, who you allow to be an associate, who you bring on as a partner, where your deals are sourced from, all those networks that you're tapping into. If those networks lack diversity and perspective and you don't have intention to diversify it further, then it's not going to happen, and it's going to become, harder and harder to change. So that's been going on for decades, for a very long time. Venture capital has always been that way. And because of the entrenched nature of how challenging it is to even get in the business in and of itself, there are a lot of founders that don't have access to this thing that they refer to as friends and family capital, right? So friends and all these stories of successful companies that say, "Oh, I raised a friends and family round." Well, what family do you have that can write you a $25,000 check or a $50,000 check? I don't have anybody in my family that could do that. So that's one small thing, but that is actually the purpose of the fund, Rising Stars Fund. So the idea is that it's a pre-seed fund, meaning first money in, that friends and family capital that you probably don't have access to. I want to be that, I want to be that replacement for all the people who deserve a chance to build their companies and have a level playing field to do so. So that's essentially what it's about.
That's great. Of the students we have here today, they're kind of at varying stages in their ventures. Some are like day one, just getting started, maybe started something in a class, like
Great.
a $1 project, I think was in Neal's class, right?
Yep.
Okay, so he's continuing a class project. Jordan's been an artist for a long time on the side, is working on some art projects, some fashion stuff. Zaria has actually a relatively thriving yoga kind of influence wellness business that they've been running.
Awesome.
Asha has a beautiful, I don't know what you call it, like art project poetry book thing that's all digitally done and ready to be printed and brought out into the world. Vedant is from Mauritius and is looking to do some social impact work back in Africa. So like our projects are like all over the place.
Yeah, it's diverse.
Various stages of like some are idea, some are kind of built and are launching. What advice do you have for kind of like early stage projects as they're spinning stuff up?
Well, one thing is don't forget to have fun, right? Because whenever business comes into it, it gets a little serious. You're like, oh, what's my cash flow? Like, I gotta, you need to make money. You need to earn more than you spend. Like, don't get me wrong. But the moment when it feels like it's just another job, like that's when something needs to be revisited. So first and foremost, make sure that you're actually having a blast and you believe in what you're doing. The second thing I would say is spend a lot of time up front understanding if you are seriously about your business, spend a lot of time understanding who your customer is, like who they actually are. Like you might think you might have a thought in your head, but spend time and really, really get to know them and understand what they're struggling with, what they're going through, and do not make it about you or your business or what you're doing. That is probably the best advice I can give. And I'm like I'm like a broken record about it. Melissa's heard me preach this gospel for years now, but it's fundamentally true. And I'm telling you, I just invested another $1 million in a group of companies that I'm working with, and they're further along, right? Like some of them have already made $1 million. Some of them are, doing really well and making tons of money or doing, some incredible technology and all that. And they still struggle with this fundamental thing because early on, they didn't make it enough of a priority to build in a system where they are spending time truly getting to know their customers. So that's one piece. I guess the last piece of advice I'll start with here for early stage is focus more on the problem and less on your solution, right? And that this actually builds from the advice I just gave. But a lot of the times we get so caught up in the thing that we want to make work, the thing that we've made. It's like, this thing has to be sold. This thing has to work. And instead it's like, no, you have an idea for who you want to help, or I hope you do. And that person isn't thinking about you. They're thinking about how they're going to feel or what they're going to get from buying that product or service from you. So the closer you get to understanding what that desired outcome is in their head, the more clarity you'll have on what product or service you actually need to make better for them to get that job done.
Yeah, I think I've asked everyone in our cohort this in one way or another. I'll pick on Jordan a little bit, but remember I asked you like, who is the target for your brand? And you said, I think it's this, I think it's maybe that. Really digging into that more. Or same thing with like Abdallah's project, right? If you're working with students, is like really understanding like the exact use case and like how you're helping students.
That's it. That's everything. Like a lot of other things can wait until you figure that out, because while there's all this fun stuff we'd like to do around businesses, like to build business models and financials and all these things, if you don't have anyone to sell to, you don't know who you're selling to, you don't really have much. So
Vedant, you have a question? Go ahead.
I've got two questions. So first, as a student, when you were a student and being a founder, it is working on a startup it takes so much effort, and I love it so much. And what advice do you have in terms of not the management part, but like, talking to professors, making sure that, we're able to balance out like homework and working on a startup? I would rather, for me being at Kellogg, I'd rather apply, like, for example, the marketing assignments to my startup instead of doing the assignments. So that's my first question.
All right. So that's it. So I love that question. Yeah. Can I answer that one first and then you ask them? Because that's a big one. It's giving me a lot of thoughts. All right. So, I'm going to keep it real. I did everything in my power to make all of the courses that I had to take or wanted to take work for whatever was on my mind or what mattered to me. Like I really did. I'm not gonna lie. Like I just manipulated everything to make it work. Like, professor, I would be in a class, I remember, and it was something about finance or investment banking or something. And I wanted to write about venture capital. And they're like, well, but it's not about venture capital, it's about this. And I was like, I'm gonna write it anyway. So just give me an F. I don't know, but this is what like I would just do stuff like that because I cared more about. Like I'm at Northwestern University. I'm spending a lot of money. I didn't have any money. I had scholarships and financial aid and whatever. But you know what I mean? It's worth a lot of money to be here. I'm gonna get what I want from it, and I'm less worried about whatever stamp you give me of a GPA. Ended up working out. I don't even know what my GPA was. It was more about what I learned. So every class and every interaction and every moment, I said, is this meaningful to me? And if so, how can I apply it to what matters? So I just kind of forced that. And I was very deliberate about that. And I always found a way to make it work. And if there was a class where I felt I was stuck in and I really didn't want to take, or I was struggling to like process it, or it was really complicated and I had other priorities, I was super clever. I formed these study groups, but I didn't just form study groups. I like managed them. So the way I did it was I would convince pretty much everyone in the class to like take a part of the course and develop a more robust study guide for it. And it was like everybody had to participate to get access to the master guide that I would organize. So that was one of my clever moves. Saved me a lot of time. Everybody else put the study guides together and I was like the arbiter and managing it. And everyone was happy. But yeah, I'm sure there are some people at some point in my life who are going to go like, Neal convinced us all to do work for him. I'm like, no, everybody got good grades. So yeah, I just make it work, man. But like you're there to learn. So if you feel like school is fighting against your desire to apply knowledge, then you need to like reconcile that somehow. And you can get creative about how you do it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you very much. The second question is more about the sort of the early stage investing. When you think about that, especially as we think about putting our ideas very concisely, how much do you expect in terms of the ideation phase being completed, and how okay or flexible are you with like us as founders recognizing actually when we're on the ground we realize this is not working, like in a way, we need to change this direction. How do you think about that?
Thank you for asking. The way I think about it is I want you to have proven to yourself that you have something real here worth doing, right? Because there are times where you'll take a chance on somebody because they seem exceptional or phenomenal. And you're like, they may not know what they're doing now, but if I bet on them now, I bet you they'll figure it out. That happens every now and then. But I don't know if you can necessarily plan to be that. And instead, what you can control is how creative and how intentional you can be with your experiments early on. So we know when we invest at the early stage that your idea is probably going to change. We know that it's probably going to pivot. You may even dramatically shift your business model. But we're really assessing how you think and how you go about solving the problems that you face and how versatile you can be with your solutions and thinking them through. So it's less about, for me at least, how much money do you have, and more about how well do you understand the problem you're going to solve, and how intentional are you doing, are you thinking about how you'll eventually make money. So if you have a clear understanding of who you want to serve eventually, and you can demonstrate that there is a pathway to getting traction within a market at the early stage, that's usually enough for someone like me at the accelerator stage. That's not usually enough for people who are looking to do some early stage investing. Like you might find an angel investor who just takes a liking to you and wants to take a bet on you. But even angel investors are going to be a little bit more scrutinous sometimes about, like, have you actually proven or done something to validate that this is a real business opportunity? Does that answer your question? Sweet.
Does anybody else have, so Neal sees like probably thousands of pitches.
Yeah, thousands. It's a lot.
A lot of ideas, a lot of pitches on all kinds of different things. Does anybody have a question even about what you're working on? How to find
Yeah, let's talk about it.
How to tell your story, how to network. These are all things that come up in our pre-survey.
Or anything else that's on your mind. Like, I really don't care. You can ask anything.
Neal only eats one meal a day if anyone wants to ask him about his interesting.
That's true. That's true. This is 0 calorie.
Well, I know you love to talk about early customers and users. Maybe we should dig into that a little bit more. Does anyone want to be a guinea pig for their project? And
yeah, tell me what you're working on. Let's just talk about what you all are doing. Like, that's an easy way to open up this room. Like, you can go off of mute and like just tell me what you're working on, and I'll dig in and we'll build the conversation from there.
Someone volunteers, I'll pick one of you.
Jordan, what are you working on?
Hello, my name is Jordan. I'm working on a fashion brand. It's mostly like archive pieces, so they'll be like one of one, and I'm focusing on sustainability, and it's more so just focusing on like new techniques in the art world and the fashion world, rather than just doing like very I don't know how to describe like what I'm not doing, but yeah.
Well, tell me about the people who you want to serve with this. Like, who is it that needs what you're trying to make?
For the most part, it's just like young people who are into fashion, who are just discovering like who they are in their fashion sense, and just experimenting with clothing, and just experimenting with like new techniques that they've never seen.
So tell me why young people experiment with clothing. Like, in your mind, like, who are these young people that you're referring to? Are these your friends or other people?
I guess through like my personal experience, like the age of like, I guess high school and college is like a good time where people like say like, oh, I'm finding myself, I'm like trying out new things, and like whatever I really like, I'm gonna like stick with for, like the rest of my life, or like I at least go in like that direction. Like it can be very like volatile and like what they're experimenting with. So I guess I've seen it in like my friends and just personal experiences.
So it's like people trying to like, become whoever they want to be, and they're going to leverage fashion and design and art to kind of manifest that a bit. And you want to help them in that journey.
Absolutely. And also just people who maybe already know like the general sense of who they are, and they just have like an interest in fashion. They're also, I guess, a customer base.
Okay. So who's doing it right now? Like, before your business succeeds, who's out there who's actually like, doing something that you respect, and you're like, all right, if I did something like that, I'd be happy.
There's a couple of brands that I follow on like a separate account that I like pay attention to their business strategies. Like Chinatown is probably like the biggest one that I've seen. Like it's more of a like already established brand. But
Chinatown? Is it called Chinatown?
Yeah, it's called Chinatown.
Okay, I've never heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a fashion brand. They also like journey into like designing basketballs and stuff. But it seems that they have like a really good customer base. You like have a really like just like diehard fan base, I would say.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, I'll check it out. That's awesome. All right, well, it's good to get. What's the name of your business?
It's called Newer. It's NEO.
Newer.
I put links in the chat to both her business and then this brand that's referencing.
Great. Awesome. All right. Who wants to go next?
Sorry, you should ask him. Oh, sorry. Somebody else is going to volunteer. Who's that? No?
I can volunteer.
Go ahead, Vedant. And then we should talk about your influencer growth strategy with Neal.
Yeah. So I'm working on ESG impact investing, focused on sub-Saharan African countries. I want to make it as the demand for ESG investing is growing. I want to make it extremely easy for people who don't have access to the multi-million funds to invest in ESG. So that's like the one front of it. So that's like my first set of customers. The second set of customers are the people. Like I come from a very small village, so basically, if I take one of the projects, endemic trees reforestation, so it creates jobs. We'll be employing the unemployed women, like one of the projects that we did in the past.
Yeah.
So it's like solving two problems, like in the United States and in Africa at the same time, because a lot of money flows into the US instead of like to developing countries.
Right. And what are you struggling with right now?
I am still trying to wrap my mind around so basically the hurdles, or how much fees and commission we have to pay to banks to move the money. For example, let's say Neal, you're like, oh, this is a great idea. I want to, to put $100,000, and I hope you do. And we show the idea to you, and then by the time like the money reaches, like for example, if you have to buy the plants or part of the land, it's so the return on investment is already low because of that. So that's like, I'm a finance major, so I'm trying to like understand that aspect. So that's one. Second thing I want to test is the appetite for US based investors to invest in Africa.
Interesting. Okay. So, I mean, with those two fronts, those are money issues, right? How are you going about assessing that appetite? And like, I guess I would imagine that appetite would be whetted by evidence that there are unforeseen investment opportunities, right? So what are those investment opportunities that people are missing out on?
So for example, like so I was like trying to like find out like the private equity model. So how do you have an exit? And then in the meantime, how do you ensure the cash flow? So one of the exit part is like when you acquire, let's say, a piece of land, and then eventually land. But like the cash flow, I'm trying to solve that through, for example, ecotourism can be one of it. Right. So I do want to be able to build a model and present to. I would love to test that with you, Neal and Melissa, and we'll see like if it is.
Are you getting rejected? Are you getting resistance?
No, I just started. So just
okay, got it.
Yeah. No, nothing.
Well, no. The reason I ask you that question is because, I'm trying to like see. I'm trying to like triangulate here. Like, are you thinking in your head that there's going to be a problem here? Or have you done the work to go out in the wild and get that reaction already? And now you're trying to figure out how to actually frame it properly.
Oh, no, not yet. Like I think that once it is like presented well, the banking part, yes, it is a problem because I've actually looked at the rates, for example, wire transfer. So that's I'm still thinking how to solve that, because if I start an investment with right away negative, it's going to be very hard to compete with the big funds.
So you triggered a thought on my end, and this hopefully is relevant to everyone. And I didn't mean to go so deep with your business to,
No, I love it. 100%.
So you kind of just have to put yourself out there. Like I quip sometimes, and I call this a sacrificial pancake. If you've ever made pancakes, you usually know that the first one's not like, that's usually the worst one. The idea is that like whatever questions you have in your mind about what someone thinks or might resist, why don't you go figure it out? Like just throw it out there. Go call somebody that you're willing to screw up with, or someone who you'll never meet again, and then make the offer. Like get uncomfortable, get on the phone and try to sell something or try to talk through something or explain what you're doing, and see if they'll invest, see if they'll buy, see if they'll do whatever. And as soon as you kind of break out of that comfort zone of not doing that, because especially as students, a lot of the students that I teach at Northwestern, they tend to stick to surveys, they tend to stick to technology, they tend to stick to tools that allow them to survey and assess things from afar without having to actually put themselves on the line to express themselves or sell something. That is usually a recipe for a much slower growth in the best case, and failure in the worst case and the more often case, right? Because if you're not willing to put those ideas out there, get the resistance, say what people said they didn't like, accept the no's with gratitude and graciously, that's going to give you a much better education in any class you can take.
Yep.
So that's what I would say to that. But there's a lot more specifics there. I'd love to hear more. I know you said you wanted to pitch me and Melissa sometime. I'm totally down for that. All right, cool. All right, what about
a good pitch by the end of Activate? That's our goal for him.
There we go.
Take good
Sweet.
story. There's
I'll
a
be
lot
looking
more.
forward
There's
to it.
mangrove trees. There's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I was able to shorten the medicines and like from last
Good job.
time we talked. So yeah, I was working on it.
So does anybody else want to talk about what they're working on?
Maybe Zaria or Asha, you guys both have
Yeah.
interesting projects with real customers and users that we could chat
Yeah,
about.
let's talk about it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Zaria.
Hey.
So my business is Earth Mama. It's something that I launched in May of 2020. So I guess I'm going on 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9 months now. So it's a lifestyle brand, but also features a podcast and a yoga business, pretty much devoted to providing people with resources surrounding spirituality and mental health and wellness. Those are the main pillars of my business.
What are people coming from when they find you?
Yeah, so that's the thing. They could be coming from literally so many different places they could be coming from. I'm also a journalist. I freelance. So I write pretty regularly, and a lot of people find me through my writing. So that could be one avenue, but also given the nature of social media, they could have found me through a collaboration that I've done with another digital creator. They could have come across my website randomly online. Yeah, they could have come to me from lots of different places.
Well, yeah, I get that they could have, right? But it sounds like you kind of know where they're coming from. Like
yeah.
you know them.
Well,
do you?
Do I know the people who are following me online? Not all of them personally, no.
No, well, the people who are paying you. Are there people paying you?
Yes.
Do you know them?
The partners that I work with, yes. Like the businesses that I work with, I do know them.
The businesses pay you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell me more about how that works.
Sure. So I charge rates like other digital creators do. And sometimes businesses will approach me because I guess I have that niche audience that they're looking for. Sometimes I'll reach out to them and then they pay me and I work with them.
Well, what are they paying you for? What outcome are they paying you for?
So they could be paying me for an Instagram post, which is like one thing that I charge a rate for. They could be charging me for to go on my Instagram story. I work with brands before to do yoga content for them. So a couple months ago, I worked with a brand from Los Angeles and they wanted me to wear their clothes while I was doing yoga. And then they produced a video and they paid me for that. So.
Well, so to reframe my question, right? Because I heard what you said, and I think you described what you did for them when they paid
Mm-hmm.
you. What I'm asking is what outcome are they paying you for? So through those activities you just mentioned, what is the business value to them?
I think one thing is exposure. I guess the people who are the people who are following me are the customers that they're looking for. So they're paying me for exposure. And they're also just paying me for me, like as a person, for I guess the expertise that I provide, either as a yoga teacher because I'm certified, or just the knowledge that I have pertaining.
So you lend credibility to what they're doing in a way, which is helping out with their brand on one hand, and on the other hand, people who see your content with their stuff associated with it might also buy from them.
Right.
Got it. Cool. That's really cool. And then what are you going to do next? Where do you take this? Where do you go from here?
Right. So what I'm focusing on right now is sort of scaling the yoga side specifically. It's one of the pillars that I launched a little bit after I launched Earth Mama more broadly. And so I just want to make it as lucrative and as stable as the other parts of my business.
Okay. And then how would you do that? How do you make it lucrative and stable?
Well, that's what the garage is for. And what
okay.
About. But
well, I mean, a couple quick thoughts there. Like one is, the boring lingo for this would be comps. That's what we say on the VC side, but that's basically like, all right, who's done it? Like who's doing it right? And who can I learn from? Right. So whoever's got their lifestyle brand that they scaled up on the yoga side, we basically want to, borrow and draw inspiration from those success stories if we can. Now, no one's going to replicate who you are and what you do in your own unique way, but there's a lot that we can learn from the folks that have paved the way in some aspects. So that's one piece. And then the other piece is like, what's your goal for that sort of part of the business this year? Yeah.
As of right now, I don't have one, like a tangible goal of what I want it to look like, or even, I don't even have like a follower count that I'm striving towards. So
Yeah. Okay. So, one quote that resonated with me when I was in college that I still repeat to myself to this day, and this is going to come off as like harsh to myself, but I appreciate it. A goal without an action plan is a daydream. So I don't know who said it first. Somebody said it at some point, and I just stuck with it. But like, yeah, like once you set that goal, then you'll need an action plan, and then it'll get real, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we're all dreaming, and that's fine. Sometimes you can make money while you're dreaming, but you can make a lot more if you have a goal and an action plan.
Word.
Yeah, good though. That's Earth Mama. Nice.
Oh, you just got another follow. Watch out.
Yeah.
Do you do yoga?
So what do? I definitely don't do yoga, but I'm gonna think of something that I do. Oh, does meditation, is that in the realm? Because I meditate all the time.
Yeah, that definitely counts.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I do
You
that.
should come to one of my classes.
Is it like
there you go. Good. Always be selling.
Always
Yes.
be selling. There you go. That's the move. I like that.
Speaking
Awesome.
of always selling, Asha, do you want to talk about your book?
Sure thing. So my name's Asha. I'm a freshman. And over the summer, I started this magazine called From the Homies with Love. It's an interactive print magazine during the George Floyd protests, because I saw everything that was going on. And I really wanted to kind of have a creative hand in thinking of how I could give back in a way that could incorporate all of my friends. So I asked my friends from like all over the country and like some from all over the world to send me poetry, like prose, art, song lyrics, just anything that they felt like essays on their identity or, the world at large. And I spent the summer and like fall quarter putting it all together using this like a program called Bookright. And so I finished it. And so now I'm so excited to be working with the Garage to cover the printing costs for it. And yeah.
So what's the distribution plan? Like, how are we actually going to get, this into people's hands?
Well, first and foremost, it's nonprofit. So all the profits are going to the Transgender Law Center, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and the Okra Project.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you. But so I was doing like in between our last meeting and now, I looked up like how we would go about printing it. And I'm pretty sure we can do printing on demand. So it's like as people buy it and purchase it, I believe the company will print it and then send it directly to them.
So how will you generate demand for this? Like, where is the demand for people to have it, like, purchase this?
Yeah. So, well, first and foremost, all of my friends who submitted, like around like 100 people, them, and then they've told their parents who have told their friends. And I've told all of my friends here at Northwestern and our parents. And also I'm working with my mentor from the Garage, and he's told his mentors, and my parents have told their friends. And so it's kind of like,
well, how many pre-orders do you have?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't done pre-orders yet.
Oh, you just told me all these people that told all these people about all these things.
Good idea. It's the idea of the day, pre-orders.
Let's get it. Let's get some commitments here. Like all these people you're telling me, that sounds great, but we need them to put something up, right?
Yeah.
Asha, what was your goal again? How much you're looking to sell? Is it 2,000 copies?
Right. It was like, it was around there. But honestly, I think as many as we can, because if it's not like a set right, like budget or something like that, like
as long as you're charging more, as long as you're charging people more than it costs to print and ship, and you're making money for your nonprofit. So I bet Neal's good for one. You should hit him up later.
Yeah, I'm probably good for one. I will say though, like that goal action plan situation, right? So even like, just so you know, like I've started and run nonprofits myself. There actually is less of a difference between nonprofits and for-profits than people think. Because you can have nonprofits that are actually really messed up and like do bad things with money, and you can have for-profits that do really good, and vice versa, right? So the opportunity you have with nonprofit is a lot of non-dilutive funding, right? A lot of grants, a lot of opportunities, access to capital that other people don't have. People have a perception that nonprofits are inherently good, or at least trying to do good, which is good. But they still have to make money. That's the thing that people don't talk about with nonprofits. You still got to make money because you have bills to pay in order to sustain the organization itself. The difference is that any surplus in profit for a nonprofit by design has to go back into the organization and not distributed to any shareholders or owners, right? So with all that in mind, it sounds like How much you charging for the book?
I think we decided on like $15 or $20.
15 bucks, 20
Yeah.
bucks. Which one is it?
Well,
Okay, it's 20 bucks. All right,
Yeah,
got it. So she's charging 20 bucks, y'all.
Uh-huh.
So $20. And you want to sell 2,000 copies by when?
Well, the goal, I'd say, oh yeah, you're right. I think I need to make sure I have a concrete goal for this because I've it's been done for a minute, but like I was waiting for the winter cohort to start now.
Don't wait. Let's make some money. Like
Yeah.
2,000 copies. The
Mhm.
path to 2,000 copies. So it's almost, I sometimes the way I like to think about it is, like reverse engineering. So you imagine some future state where you're like, whoa, we sold 2,000 copies. Like whatever that day is, let's just work backwards from that day to understand what went into that effort to make that moment real.
Right.
Right. That's the mental exercise that I would do if I were you to kind of manifest that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got it though. Like, I mean, maybe you won't sell 2,000 copies, but trying to sell 2,000 copies, you'll probably sell more than if you didn't set a goal like that.
Right. That's a very good point. Thank you.
Great.
I'm going to leave the Caleb's alone because both of their projects are on hold right now. But
All good.
I'm going to pick on Abdallah. Chat a little bit. You already know his project really well because he was in your class. Did
So
you do a good job?
is it the same project? Are you still working on the same thing?
Yes.
Oh, I love it. All right, well, give me the update, man.
Yeah,
This is
so
great.
our project is peer-to-peer mental health support. So our plan is to work with Northwestern to develop a service and a platform to help students, especially ones going through a transition, find each other and be able to support each other with their mental health struggles. And it would be a supplement to other mental health resources. So since I talked to you over winter break,
Yeah.
Since then I took your advice. I met with my group. We were making a founders agreement and everything.
Yes.
And they're kind of helping.
Everyone, founders agreements. If you have other people you're working with, get it in writing what your commitments are. Please, I will rant about this once he's done.
But so far we set up a plan. I think now we have a good understanding of our project. We have a good pitch. We have enough to demonstrate to whoever needs to hear it that there's a need for this.
What's your prototype? Like, what's the state of the prototype? Have you done any other MVP type stuff?
We're planning on doing more. So
Okay.
we kind of split it up. So two of our team members are planning to do more interviews and try to get more of those MVPs done. And then I'm gonna reach out to CAPS and try to get validation through there. And then the fourth team member is gonna reach out to. We're gonna start with McCormick. We decided. Because we have good connections with the Ellen Warsdahl, who is the Dean of Student Affairs at McCormick. So I guess now we're kind of starting the bureaucratic process, which might take a long time, but because things move slow within the university, so we're trying to get the ball rolling and while also continuing to validate our project.
Well, speaking of the validation side, like the one mindset I'd love to share with you, just to, continue thinking about this, is just recognize that every single day, like on your, in your community at Northwestern, there's probably someone who you could help through what you're trying to do. There's someone every day who could use your help, right? Where if you make a connection from one person to another and they're going through things and they can support each other, and if you can facilitate that connection, it's going to make a meaningful difference in their life, like a real difference. And just never lose sight of that reality and recognize that even if it's in a small way, even if it's manual, even if it's not at scale yet, even if it's an experiment, it's worth doing. So just don't stop running those experiments, because even though you have to deal with the university bureaucracy and jump through the hoops and deal with the paperwork and all that stuff, you never want to lose your connection to the impact of the work itself. So just make sure that you're continuing to run those experiments and don't let up on that part of it, because whether or not you get support externally or outside or from Northwestern or some other party, you'll know that you're making a difference by seeing it happen with those early stage users and customers. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Neal, in the 8 minutes we have left, should we break it down to Neal's top takeaways? Because Matt's going to write a little recap article on this so we can share the recording a little bit more broadly with other students.
Sure.
But if we can all share things that we heard. So I heard everybody needs to have some, it sounds like metrics are really important, a goal that you're trying to accomplish, and then an action plan for how you're going to get there.
Yes.
What else did we hear Neal say? What were some other takeaways from today's chat?
Invest in knowing your customers.
Invest in knowing your customers for sure. And that doesn't mean surveying them. It doesn't mean sending them an email, getting a questionnaire back. It means like getting to know them, asking them questions.
I think understanding like not just the product or the service that you're giving out, but focusing on the value that whoever you want to use your product is getting out of it.
That's right.
Yep. What else did we
I'm trying to think of myself. I'm like, what did I say?
Just ran your mouth for an hour. You don't know what you said. I think you made some good points to Vedant about really like getting out there and test, like be okay. Whatever your first pancake, like
sacrificial pancake,
getting out there and just, pitching what you're working on, or Asha asking Neal just to buy your $20 booklet and see what he said.
Yeah.
Getting out there.
Yeah. Keep selling.
Worst case, people just say no. It's okay. Anything else? Matt's been taking notes. Anything we're missing, Matt?
Maybe we got it.
I have a couple more just like detailed stuff because like she said, I've been taking notes. But so yeah, especially like with the action plan, something that you can do is that once you have like a time frame, you can kind of reverse engineer what you need to do to make that happen. So like especially with like the 2,000 books by like by what time frame, you can kind of just figure out what you need to do to make that happen. So just again more with the action plan stuff.
I've got an open question for the room for the final few minutes, if that's cool. If you all would humor me, and this is for anyone. What can we be doing better at Northwestern to serve you as entrepreneurs?
Funding.
We can do it better. We can do funding better.
Yeah, like I was just like thinking about the cost of and you would understand this, like I'm also in scholarship, so
yeah.
So kind of like they're like little costs, like as like start to do a couple of testing, so that could be something.
Well, can I comment on that?
That's what $1,000 is for, Vedant.
Well, I was gonna say I could totally be wrong about this, but let me remind you, like back when I was there, none of this funding was around. Like it wasn't. You had to go out there and you ate what you killed, So the way, like I actually firmly believe constraints force creativity. Meaning when you have less, you learn how to get really creative and manage your resources, and you're probably better at getting more than the people who've always been given something. So that's one piece to like think about there. Like that sounds like a feature and not a bug. Like if it's challenging to get fundraising, that means that you have to be better than the other person.
Yeah, sometimes students are reluctant to spend the money that we give them because they want to be like, make sure it's like the perfect plan. Like the money is meant to be spent to experiment and learn. So that's this first $1,000 in particular, like register your domain name, do run a survey, give away whatever, buy coffee for customers or things like that. Money is meant to be used for.
I think something that can be done better, I would say just encouraging students to get out and like do more. I think I've spent a lot of time, learning the processes, maybe because I'm a minor, right? Like the academic stuff that goes into it. But actually talking to people, like you said, is super important. And actually doing like sell something, do something, and being pushed more in that way, I think would have been more helpful for me.
Right. Okay. That's really good to hear. I agree with that. I think it's really challenging sometimes to encourage that, especially this past year.
It's also just scary, right? To put yourself out there and like ask people about stuff, and like the fear of rejection is super real, right? People are gonna say like, I don't like that, or that's stupid, or I don't want to buy that.
Yeah, and what's amazing with that fear of rejection though is like, unlike the other situations like social, or if you're trying to meet somebody for the first time or whatever, like you can kind of never see them again, and no one will care. You know, like that's the thing. Like if you get in mindset, you realize like I'm not actually gonna have to remember this at all. Like there are hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of customers that I can eventually get with my business. Therefore, this one person who's going to tell me that they don't like what I'm doing isn't really going to matter in the grand scheme of things. And if anything, they're helping me by being honest.
Abdallah, you're going to add something?
I was going to say one thing is probably getting students to understand that entrepreneurship isn't just for like business people, if that makes sense. Like I didn't even think or consider doing anything entrepreneurship related until Caleb Holland talked me into coming to this random event, and it was really cool. And like, I guess my whole life I was thinking like, oh, my brother, you met my brother. Like my brother is the person and I'm the school person, and those are two different things. But like understanding, especially like in McCormick, like I guess people just think, oh, I got to go to a good company, but like, no, you could like take your skills and like do something you want to do as well. Yeah. Like entrepreneurship can be for anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur.
Well, I honestly think it's for anybody who likes freedom. Because that's me, like that's what this is, y'all. Like it's freedom. Like this is yours. You made it and you own it, and you get to build it and decide what to do with it. That is the ultimate freedom. Okay? So whether it's something you do on the side, whether it's something you do all in, there's so many respectable ways to be an entrepreneur. So just know that all of you all have that in you, from what I can tell. And I know we're nearing our time here, but I just wanted to, let you all know that if there's anything more that I can do to support you on your journeys, I'm here for you. So I'll put my email in the chat here.
That's an awesome place to end. I think that's such a poignant spot. I think as you guys can tell, like both Neal and I are passionate about, like, we don't care if you become entrepreneurs or not, but we want you to learn this skill set. So whether you go on to be a doctor, a lawyer, or business leader, or an actor, whatever you're going to do with your life, just having this skill set will make you fly further and make you a little bit more free. So I will, I'm going to grab your email. I'm going to put it in our Slack.
Perfect.
I know you guys don't love the Slack, but I'm putting all the stuff in the Slack in hopes that you guys eventually.
you gotta go somewhere.
Gotta go somewhere. Thank you so much, Neal. We really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are, so we appreciate having you here today.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Neal.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Wonderful weekend. I'll see you next week at our next session. Your proposals for your budgets are due. If you want to meet with me or Matt to just go over one-on-one items, I'm happy to chat with you guys. But we should all have a game plan for spending the money. All right.
Awesome.
See you next week.
See y'all.